So Season 5 Reloaded kicked off this past week, and with it came our usual weapon tuning that we see, unfortunately only once per seasonal update it seems like, so once a month with the ebbs and flows of both the seasonal launch and the seasonal Reloaded updates. Season 5 Reloaded for Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone was no different, as we had a ton of weapon tuning across the board surprisingly, and with that it knocked some of the main contenders down a peg, all while elevating some new blood into the meta. So today we're taking a look at my picks for the top 10 best weapons and loadouts that you should be using after the Season 5 Reloaded update in our sort of once a month Warzone specific video. As we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Do you like the sound of any of these? Would you like to drop any builds that we didn't mention in the list? Feel free to. We're all here for the same reason, to get the best possible builds and to try and do as best as a community. So feel free to share your thoughts. If you enjoy the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone, Modern Warfare 3, XDefiant, and more. I'd love to have you in the community. And finally, check out my friends over at G Fuel for 30% off certain items in the month of September, but more on that a little later. For now, let's just jump right into the loadouts at hand that you should be using. First, right up front, the LMG meta is back here with this. It's going to be something that almost all the LMGs are very viable in terms of most gunfights, but the three that I've been running around with and found some success with are the RAPP, Sakin MG38 or Sakin MG38, and the RPK. For the RAPP, starting here at this one, I'd recommend the AMOP V4 optic, the ZLR Talon muzzle, the Hound 9G grip, the 100 round mag, and the Lachmann TCG. It's not often that on LMGs I recommend taking a magazine adjustment, but with the RAPP's fire rate, you're gonna burn through ammo, and it's one that in sort of medium range, it's phenomenal for that because you will absolutely just burn through ammo to the point your enemies really can't return fire in a way that really gives them an advantage. At longer ranges, this won't excel as much as the Sakin, but it is one that for that medium to slightly further distances, it's just incredible and will shred through your enemies. Give that one a try. Then for the Sakin, again, talking about a little bit more longer range for LMG play, I'd recommend the AMOP V4 optic, the 20-inch Bruin Silver Series barrel, the ZLR Talon 5 muzzle, the 7.62 high velocity ammunition, and the Stip 40 grip for a bit more control here at this one. You're not really favoring any attachments or anything that helps with sprint to fire speed or ADS speed, but it is a build that will help you control that recoil, which at a distance, again, is incredibly helpful. You have that power and damage of a 7.62 round with the absolute force an LMG will have, but incredibly manageable in terms of recoil at a distance. So can't go wrong with that one as well. Then the RPK is one that rounds out our sort of LMG setups here at this, where I'd recommend the AMOP V4, ZLR Talon muzzle, FTAC Ripper underbarrel, 7.62 high velocity, and the Demo X2 rear grip. So again, kind of a similar build and kind of a hybrid between the RAPP and the Sakin, another great viable option for LMGs as well. Now the Cronen Squall, which was previously the definitive meta weapon within Warzone ranked and a more higher caliber competitive level of play, this for full auto play was nerfed pretty heavily, but if you put it into semi-auto mode, it still does have decent power behind it. I'm just not a huge fan of having to spam the trigger finger while in semi-auto mode. So if you want to use it, you still absolutely can. For this, I'd recommend the AMOP V4, HR 6.8 barrel, Sakin Tread 40 muzzle, FTAC Ripper underbarrel, and the 50 round drum. Then moving over into a weapon that kind of climbed the ranks here as a result of the weapon tuning is the Kastov 7.62. This one, I'd recommend the AMOP V4, the Cast 10 584mm barrel, the ZLR Talon muzzle, the FTAC Ripper underbarrel, and the 40 round magazine. This one's going to be a bit more mobile than compared to say your RPK, but will still have very good damage. Not necessarily 1-to-1, but it is 7.62 and it's a lot more mobile than what you see with some of those LMGs that we've talked about. We'll talk about a few other rifles, but for this, 7.62 is probably one of my main designated rifles here for Warzone at the moment. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some SMGs. The Lachmann sub is still what I would say is one of the best meta SMGs, but I think it leapfrogs over the ISO here after the recent adjustments. For this, I'd recommend the VLK Laser 7mW, the L38 Falcon 226mm barrel, the 40 round magazine, not quite 50 because you get a bit more ADS speed and a bit quicker reload speed as compared to the 50, but you can throw that 50 on if you want to. Then the Lachmann TCG 10 rear grip and the FTAC mobile stock. That was one that was fixed out with this update as well, so a very viable attachment to use there. This one is a very mobile SMG and of course is one that still can pack a punch comparable to the ISO beforehand. That and the ISO are still my definitive go-tos for SMGs. Now before we talk about that ISO build, a quick reminder, check out my friends over at G Fuel. Code Espresso can get you 30% off certain items in the month of September. Things like hype sauce tubs, starter kits, and other tubs as well. If you want to try something out for the very first time or grab a restock, now's as best a time as any with Code Espresso being bumped up to 30% off certain items. So check that link in the description below if you guys are at all interested, but for now, back into it. Now, we mentioned the ISO. That is one that still we can kind of breeze past because it is a weapon that we've used before, and it is one that hasn't changed a whole ton since our last discussion. But for this, I'd recommend the VLK Laser 7 milliwatt, the Lockshot KT85 muzzle, the 45 round drum mag, the EXP shear, and the SK3 Cheetah stock. These giving you a bit more mobility in terms of sprint to fire, ADS speed, and just relative handling. So it's a speedy build, no less. After that, let's talk about two weapons in particular that got actually some pretty decent buffs to them and make them relative contenders now at this point. Firstly, the M13B. This, we ended up seeing overall adjustments to the multipliers across a player's body with this weapon, so it rewards more, especially the more accurate you are. For this, I'd recommend the AMOB V4, the 14-inch Bruin Echelon barrel, the Echoless 80 muzzle, the FTAC Ripper 56, and the 60-round magazine. It's a build we've used for on and off quite some time now at this point, but highly recommend both of those. Beyond that, the Chimera was another weapon that ended up seeing a massive adjustment here in regards to a buff, so it's definitely a nice one to build out for sure. For this, I'd recommend it almost as a sniper support weapon. I don't know if I'm ready to go main AR with this just yet. Maybe if you're like playing Vondel or something like that in Resurgence where you're playing more close quarters. It's a bit quicker of a rifle and it doesn't have as far a range as say our 7.62 that we just talked about or any of the LMG metas that we talked about. Instead, this is one that is suited again for more medium range here, but it will absolutely excel in that position. For this, I'd recommend the Cronen Mini Pro Optic, the 10-inch SA Phoenix barrel, the FTAC Ripper underbarrel, the 45 round magazine, and the D37 grip to give you that balance between a bit more speed and a bit more control. So highly recommend that one. Check it out. And then the final two weapons we'll touch on here. Yes, I know we now have 11 weapons, not just 10 in particular, but kind of want to fold these into one just because like I don't talk too much about sniping and I don't talk too much about pistols, but just for the sake of having both of them covering the bases, considering them like half a loadout or something like that. The Signal 50 for sniping is still basically the only sniper you'll see in Warzone, and it's mad annoying still in ranked play. But for this, I'd say the scope of your choice, if any, the 29-inch TV Kilo 50 barrel, the Bruin Counter Ops muzzle, the 50 cal high velocity ammunition, and the FSS Echo stock. That is something that, again, that spammy nature just gets to be incredibly annoying if you can keep breaking armor on your enemies, and again, if you hit them twice in consecutive fashion, you'll break and then down the enemy. After that, the FTAC Siege is the pistol that I want to talk about because if you're playing in Warzone ranked, it might not happen as much. It seems like they may have adjusted some of the circle rotations and the logic behind it, but recently my squad just had an all-water ending just south of airport, so it still happens, and if that's the case, well, you can't shoot underwater with a regular primary weapon. So to have a secondary that is full auto, that has a ton of ammo, and that is decently powerful is something that's very helpful here in those kind of situations. Maybe niche, but very helpful no less. For this, I'd recommend the FJX DIOD 70 laser, the CM-RN 50 barrel, the 72 round magazine, the SIR 160 grip, and the FTAC Siege stock to go along with that. But that is the top 10, or I guess top 11 if we're being honest, loadouts here that I would recommend within Warzone for Season 5 Reloaded after the update. Let me know your thoughts down below. Any of these stand out to you? Any of you guys rocking yourself? If you try them out, let me know how you do with them down below, but that is what we're going to call it. So let me know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to stay up to date with all things Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2, Warzone, X-Defiant, and some other FPS content here upcoming. I'd love to have in the community. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name has been Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.